No foreign answer, no foreign answer, no. They better watch out. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Queen D.
And I'm Dr. E.
Oh, my
Okay, all
capacity.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, Queen V, what do we have on the menu for today?
Well, Queen Dr. E, we have an amazing story of Dr. Lewis Howard Latimer. And do you know, at the turn of the century, well, not throughout all of American history, we have so many incredible stories of amazing, audacious people that have been hidden from history. I would like to say that they have been forgotten by history, but I believe that they have been intentionally hidden from history. And he is one of those characters.
Well, let's talk about it.
Well, he was an amazing, amazing man. He was born in 1848. 1848. And he was born to parents who were born slaves. And they have an amazing story in and of their own selves. But what Mr. Lewis Howard Latimer is known for the most are the serial patents that he has. He has patents on so many different industries. And the brilliant thing about him, Dr. E, is that he has no history, no recorded history of receiving an education past 15 years old when he was enlisted into the military.
Well, how did he get, well, you say he has all these patents and he didn't have, there's nothing recorded in terms of his education. Let's talk a little bit more. How did he get these patents?
Well, this is the incredible thing. I'll give a little bit of background on his story, and it will make everything else even more just sensational. He was born to parents who escaped slavery in Virginia and fled to Chelsea, Massachusetts on October the 8th of 1842. But the day that they arrived in Massachusetts, the father was recognized by a colleague of his former slave owner and was arrested a few days later. They wanted to arrest him and return him back to the slave owner in Virginia. But what happened was that he received such notoriety as he went to trial because Frederick Douglass and the famous abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison were defending him. As a result of their defending him, he was able to purchase his freedom and to live with his family in Massachusetts. So that's the backstory. This young Lewis Howard Latimer actually knew Frederick Douglass. Isn't that amazing?
God. Yeah, I remember reading about Frederick Douglass, and back in school, but I never heard of Lewis. I never heard of him before.
I know, it's so crazy, Dr. E, until I started researching for our audacious stories. I never heard of his story either, but it is just an assault and an insult on history, on American history, that we haven't heard more about this incredible man. But I'll go a little bit more into his life story. Lewis Howard Latimer joined the U.S. Navy at 15 years old on September the 16th of 1863 and served as a landsman on the USS Massachusetts. After receiving an honorable discharge from the Navy 2 years later, he gained employment as an office boy with a patent law firm. So basically, all that he learned to do, he was self-taught and learned his skills as a draftsman, etc., from his own ambition.
Well, okay, so where did this audacity to succeed? I mean, this ambition obviously came from his parents. But, you know, where did the audacity to move forward during that era where it's like, okay, you know that you're Black. And back during the slavery times or whatever it is, the slaves were held back. Where did he get this from?
I think that it was something that was pressed into him that we see with so many of the stories of African Americans post-slavery. They were on a trajectory to prove themselves intelligent, capable, worthy. And so no matter what obstacles they encountered, they were going to excel. Now, what was said of him is that his boss recognized his talent for sketching patent drawings. And so he was promoted. You know, when you have that degree of brilliance and excellence, no matter how people try to keep you down, they can't ignore you. Not if you're the best of the best. And he was the best of the best. So he was promoted to the position of head draftsman, earning $20 a week by 1872.
Now that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money back then. Yeah.
That's almost $500 a week today, which was unheard of for an African American. But understand his attitude and his altitude for greatness exceeded his station in life. He was not going to be held down because he was the best of the best.
Well, let me ask you a question. In terms of his patents, can you talk more specifically about those patents? Because I'm just curious what motivated him to do patents, and then what those particular patents were.
Absolutely. Well, these are some of the patents that he's responsible for. In 1874, Latimer co-patented with Charles Brown an improved toilet system for railroad cars called the water closet for railroad cars. Patent. In 1886, Alexander Graham Bell of the phone company, Graham Bell.
Can you repeat that? Alexander who?
Alexander Graham Bell.
Okay. Everybody knows about the Bell. Yep.
Right. He was a draftsman at Bell's patent law firm, and he was solicited. They went after him to draft the necessary drawings required to receive a patent for Bell's telephone. So Alexander Graham's Bell patent was drafted and constructed by this brilliant mind, who we have heard nothing about in history. I'll say I had heard nothing about in history, right? Not only that, Dr. E, pardon me for that brief little interruption. Not only that, Dr. E, in 1879, he was hired as an assistant manager and draftsman for the U.S. Lighting Company, a company that was owned by Hiram Maxim, a rival of Thomas Edison. While Latimer was there at Thomas Edison's rival, he invented a modification to the process of making carbon filaments, which aimed to reduce breakage during the carbonization process. So he was really kind of a forerunner, certainly a peer of Edison's, right? Because he worked for Edison's rival. But because of his work with his rival, Edison solicited him and hired him to work with him. And in doing so, in 1884, he went to work with Thomas Edison. Along with the work that he did with Edison, he was also responsible for translating data into German and French. So he was not only a brilliant scientist, a brilliant draftsman, he was also very, he could speak both German and French. And he was responsible for the lighting systems in not only America, but London and other countries as well.
Well, you know, that is a mouthful. It's amazing to me that I never heard of him in terms of what I learned in my history classes my entire life. Now, what I find incredible, it's like, what role did his family, the community, or the culture play in his pursuit of excellence? Because I'm saying, okay, he has these patents and he did this, he did that. He was hanging out with Frederick Douglass. Was that his role model? How did he get connected with all these people?
Well, this is something so interesting, and it's what I admire so much about his audacious story, sis, is that nothing was easy for him, and certainly nothing was given to him. It's recorded that when he was 10 years old, his mother had to have the family split after the Dred Scott decision, which ruled that individual slaves needed to prove that they had the consent of their owner in order to legally become free. Well, so many African Americans, former slaves, had to go through all of these calisthenics and do all of these dramatic things to try to remain free. And so her family, his mother decided it was easier to split the family up so they would not be targeted and sent back to slavery. So, he grew up, I think, really appreciating the opportunities of education and being able to learn. No doubt his parents taught him how to read because he really had no type of formal education, but that was so true of the time that our forefathers found the need to prove themselves and elevate the race and just do whatever they had to do to be excellent. And that was just the epitome to me of audacity, the audacity to believe that he could be the best in spite of everything.
Well, it's so interesting that you're sharing this rich information simply because it did not matter that he didn't have an education past 15 at 15 years old, and then he went into the military, and all these things that people will think that would be obstacles that would cause the average person to turn around and say, well, you know what? This is it. This is all I can do. This is all I have, and not moving or pressing forward. Now, let's talk about what that means in today's world, having the audacity to believe. I think about Harriet Tubman as you tell his story. He had obstacles, she had obstacles, but she did not let her physical disability, she had this narcolepsy thing going on where she'd just fall asleep in the middle of trying to free the slaves and take them to what she believed was the promised land up north. She didn't let that stop her. And I think about our ancestors and all of the obstacles that were presented to them, and they had the audacity to believe that they could, or they can, and they will. What do we tell our listening audience that feel, when you start thinking about the COVID and what's going on and what's happening in the world with the wars and rumors of wars and just so much negativity? How can we break through the negativities and still have the audacity to believe that we can press forward just like our ancestors?
You know what? I think, Dr. E, your point is so very relatable to where we are now. How do we use his story to inform our behavior going forward? I think one caveat that we can take from his story is that nothing can stop you but you. Nothing can stop you from you. People can try to stop you. They can throw up hindrances. They can throw up systems. They can throw up barriers. But you can become so excellent that you cannot be ignored. And that, to me, is the whole essence of his audacity, is his excellence. Not only was he a brilliant mind, but he wasn't a brilliant mind that just sat on his brilliance, and thought, oh, well, I can't because, and, if I was white, or if it wasn't this, or if my parents weren't slaves, or if they weren't trying to hunt us down. He allowed no excuses, and he taught himself. He availed himself of education. He learned what he needed to learn. He excelled in the small places, and he excelled so much with the small things, like the Bible says that if you will become master over if you will become diligent over the small things, that you will become master over the big things. And I think that's what happened with him. Mm-hmm. He became too brilliant, too great, too excellent to ignore.
Okay, well stated. I'll say this, is that what he did with his life is absolutely incredible. He obviously read quite a bit. He labored under the correct knowledge. So I say he's lucky. Labor under correct knowledge. I mean, the luck. And so having that luck, labor under correct knowledge, propelled him to higher places. And so when we think in terms of audacity to believe, we can't just sit on our laurels and say, okay, I got the audacity to believe, and I'm just going to say it A to B, and it's going to come by osmosis, or it's going to come knocking on the door and we just wait on it. What do we do to prepare ourselves to be audacious and to have the audacity to believe and then implement to make it happen?
Absolutely. I believe that famous quote that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. It requires WORK.
Can you repeat that? Can you repeat that?
It requires WORK. People, especially right now, think that, you get it by fairy dust, you get it by having, a great brand, some sexy brand image or brand name. No, it still always goes back to WORK. Or like you said so succinctly, luck. Laboring under correct knowledge. You must put the time in. And not just any time, intentional time, excellent time, learning as you go, improving as you go, and not being afraid to start small and grow large. So much of right now, everybody wants to start big. Nobody wants to start small. Everybody wants, 6 months out of college and they want to have the corner office. No, it is laboring under correct knowledge, being excellent with what you've been given, and then being promoted, and then growing into that promotion, et cetera, et cetera.
I'll tell you, there are those individuals that still believe in being lucky and are the luck, meaning that it's going to come externally and then you can just have it, voila, it just pops in your hands. And we're not talking about that kind of luck. We're talking about the labor under correct knowledge. Now, let me ask you this. I think about what, all the obstacles, even with Frederick Douglass, that's a whole new different topic. And we're not going to go there right now. But when you were a slave, or you're from that slavery days, there's something that's happening even right now as we speak. And there are people that are still enslaved in their minds. How do we break that chain where people walk in fear because they're enslaved? They're not in slavery as we once knew slavery and we talk about it, but the mindset of being enslaved. Can you just speak on that for a minute? Because I believe the enslaved mind keeps us from living our best and not being able to achieve the audacity to believe. We can't even get to the odd in audacity because of that enslaved mindset. So talk about that a little bit.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. Enslavement, starts in the mind. The battleground is the mind. Everything that we will ever accomplish or ever do starts with our mind. And like I love to say so much is that you cannot be what you cannot see. And so we, first of all, I believe, have to start having images of what's possible, of what we are capable of being and doing and seeing. I believe for this particular young man that, you know, Frederick Douglass was such a towering figure, himself having been a former slave, that this young man thought, oh my God, what can I be if I apply myself, because I see what the great Frederick Douglass became. And so we always have to have images that are greater than our circumstances. I think that, you know, God created us to be visual creatures, and he will even implant dreams in our hearts that are way beyond our circumstances. And we think, oh my gosh, where did this come from? Pizza last night? No, they are little nuggets from the very mind of God into who he created us to be. And I think that we all have to follow those little breadcrumbs through life that are there to think, you know what, let me just take the next step. I don't have to think about being a Dr. E today. Maybe I can think about being a teacher's assistant. And then, you know what, once I get to be a teacher's assistant and I think, wow, I really can learn in this environment. I really can impact students. I really do like doing that. Then taking the next step and the next step. Life, you know, is a journey. It is a marathon. It's not a sprint. But as we go step by step, and speaking to the slave mindset, as we throw off chains, I'm not stupid. I can learn. I'm not dumb. I can get this. I can get a mentor. I can get a tutor. I can figure it out. As we start throwing off those chains, I'm not too old. I'm not too young. I am the right color. I am the right age. Whatever it is, we start throwing off the chains off of our mind that lead to us excelling, just like this incredible, brilliant man.
Oh my, you've said a mouthful. And I hope that our listeners also can see that it's incredibly important that we all spend the time, find a mentor if you can find a mentor. Or I'll just say this, when I'm in the classroom with students, I have so many students over the years, I mean, thousands of students. I can't even count how many students I've interacted with from all over the world, all ethnicities, all races, etc. I have been a mentor to many. And to this very day, I'm still a mentor and a role model. And I'm proud to say that there are so many wonderful students that I have had the honor of being in their presence who have said, hey, you inspired me, is because as the only Black female professor that I've ever seen in my life, you've inspired me to move forward, press forward, because if you can do it, I can too. And that comes from men and women. So I'll say this, Queen V, we have to use ourselves as role models to help people understand that they can believe, and yes, they have to be audacious to believe that they can do anything they set their minds to. They can be anything they want to be, and that nothing should stop them. Now that brings on one other thing. I just have to say this. Sometimes as a Black woman, I feel that I have to pay a price just for being Black. I'm not proud to say I'm the first and the only in my particular area, but it's really sad. I find it a very sad thing to talk about, but at the same time, it's inspirational because I can say, if I can get through this racism, if I can get through nepotism, elitism, you name it, then you can too. And sometimes I felt that I've had to pay a tax or a price just because the color of my skin. What would you say to individuals that want to press forward and move forward, but are listening to the rhetoric in this world today saying, okay, if you're Black, then you can't do certain things, or you're being judged, or whatever it is? What can you do to inspire not only all people, but particularly Black young kids? trying to get through a very racist system. And I say this, Queen V, is because as a little girl, I experienced racism. It came to my awareness when I was 5 years old. And I didn't think that, I thought I was like any other kid, but it had to be brought to my attention that I couldn't do the same things as other little kids because of the color of my skin. I think about all the slaves and what the price they paid because they are Black. And so utilizing the term Black rather than African American, I'm saying Black simply because right now the talk is Black, Indigenous, people of color. That's what people in the world are talking about. BIPOC.
Right.
And,
Right. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so speak to that. And then, as we get ready to wrap this up, it's because I think it's really important right now, given the climate in this world. People are stratifying themselves based on race or gender or something else, the color of your eyes or your religious preference or your political affiliation. How can we get to the point that we can just be people and not worry about this Black tax or whatever it is we need to pay?
Wow. Well, you know what? That's a loaded question. I think that is, that's a whole other conversation. But I think on an individual basis, we have to have the gravitas and the strength within to know, like Eleanor Roosevelt said, her famous quote, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." It all starts with us. We are as powerful as we decide to be.
Okay.
When we decide that we want to be powerless because we are whatever ethnicity, whatever gender, whatever socioeconomic status, and we are limiting ourselves. But the God that created us gave us such magnificent and such a brilliant mind that any point in time we can decide, no, I'm better than that. Mm-hmm. You may not think that I'm better than that, but your opinion doesn't matter. The opinion that matters the most is the opinion that we have of ourselves, period. Okay. And that is what I would tell every African-American student, every BIPOC student, every student of any stripe, creed, whatever, religion. It is what you believe about you.
Okay,
that is the most important.
Okay, so that gets back to what you said earlier, is that, we have to surround ourselves with positive thinking people, role models, listen to positive, you said we go on the internet, we can find all sorts of opportunities to find positive images, conversations, the whole 9 yards.
Yes, ultimately, sis, I believe that it is self-stewarding our lives. Okay. We are the stewards of our life. Nobody else, God's not given anybody more power over us than he's given us over us. And so it is our responsibility. It is our duty. I believe it is our joy to be able to navigate our own lives. We do it together with him. And I love to call that the grace of God and our own personal grit, hand in hand, to construct our lives to be the beautiful image and the dream that he created it to be.
Beautifully said. Having said that, we'll just wrap it up. And I just tell you, it's really wonderful when we can think about where we are today, but also be able to put our finger on where we come from and the people, our forefathers, sisters, and brothers that came before us. We stand on their shoulders. And they had the audacity to believe that there will be better days. They had the audacity to believe that one day, someday, you and I can do what we're doing right now. So absolutely. You and I have to have the audacity to believe that there's going to be someone listening out there that will wake up and say, hey, you know what? I'm greater than, I'm more than, and I am enough in my skin because I have the audacity to believe in myself. And so with that, Queen V, what do you have to say to wrap this up so that we can get on with our wonderful next episode that we will be bringing our audience back in?
I say for our next episode, let's stay tuned for more riveting, compelling, true life stories of phenomenal people who were ordinary in their own skin, but did extraordinary things because they had the audacity to believe.
All right. And we want to just tell our audience they can catch us on QueenV and DrE.com. So be sure to tune in to QueenV and DrE.com, and we'll see you next time. Thank you and have a wonderful, audacious day.
Bye-bye.
They better watch out, yeah. Forget the things that they say. Look out, babe, look out. You're gonna